Hello and welcome back to another video. So today we are back at the topping. It's a forest of rushes, as you can see. So yesterday I topped this bit here high. So I had the topper lifted. I had the top link pushed out a bit, that when the topper is lifted that it's sort of straight and it's not up like that when you're lifting it for the road. So I had the topper fully lifted up and I topped all this high. And then when I came in, the gate is over there. I went around that way on the field, and now I'm going to top this section high. I basically split the field in half because it was a lot to do, so I'm going to top this half up high now, and then when I'm finished topping this high, I'm going to put down the topper low and then go over the whole field then with the topper on the ground, the skids on the ground. And I asked the old man, did he want to lower down the topper so that the top of the skids is level with the topper here, and he says no, he won't bother. He'll leave them fairly, even when we're cutting them low on the ground, he wants them fairly high because he wants to come over then either in the next couple of weeks or in next springtime and just spray the whole lot of them and get rid of them. Because all we've been doing really is topping these every year. We mulched them one year and we were meant to spray them but never got around to it, so every year we top them. And this year is no different. We are back at topping them, so I'm topping them high and then I'm going to top the whole field low, and in the next couple of weeks or next spring we're going to spray them, hopefully. That's what he says. So yeah, let's get started. I'll set up the camera somewhere on the tractor, do a couple of rings, and then I'll set the camera up somewhere outside and time lapse up. Right, so that's it topped up high with the topper sort of lifted with the skids in the sky. Now I'm going to go around with the topper like that, where the skids are on the ground and sliding on the ground, and just sort of go over this again, because the rushes were really high. I don't think I even showed you how high they were, but you can clearly see here there are rushes topped with the topper held up high. So you know the rushes were really high, and you can see here some of them are sort of lying that way, so if they were standing up you could clearly see how high they are. That's with the tops of them topped off, with the topper lifted up into the sky. It's still sort of underneath the weight block there on the tractor. So yeah, it really was very high rushes indeed. I also don't think I mentioned that I was topping them with the topper lifted. I was going around them in low fourth with the engine rev to 1500, so 1500, no, 15,000, sorry, the engine rev to 15,000. And looking at some of them are relatively short, they're just about a foot high. When I go over them again, they'll only be a couple of inches, maybe 5 or 6 inches high, maybe a little bit more, because the topper, the skids on the topper are maxed out to its maximum height. So yeah, but as I mentioned at the start of the video, we want to top them high because we plan on spraying them in the next couple of weeks or in next spring. I don't know if you can see, but they are relatively high anyways. When we go over them now with the topper on its flat, just like the way it is now, we'll see how much it cuts off them. But I'm going to set up, I don't know, will I do it in sections again? Because yesterday I split the field in half, and I done one half yesterday and then the half that I'm doing today on this video. I didn't record anything yesterday, but you know, I don't know, should I split the field in half again and do it in halves, in sections, or should I just go around the whole field? I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to do it yet, but we'll see. Because I don't know, will I be able to do it in high first? Because they're still pretty high in patches and thick in patches, so I might have to go over them again in low fourth. And if it's low fourth, if that's the case, like, it is a pretty big field, so I might just split it in half and do half and half. But we'll see how we get on. I'm pretty sure that if I go in high, I can test it. I might test it first and see, is it able to do high first. If it's not, because you can see that there's lumps like that are fairly high. Even with them trimmed, they're still fairly tall. So yeah, I might test it in high first. If it's able for it, we'll stick it in high first. If it's not, we'll have to probably drop it down to low fourth. So I'll put the camera down. I'll do the outline of the field. I'll split it in half again. I've decided I'll split it in half again and do it in sections. And we'll try it in high first, and we'll see how we get on. I done a couple of rings around. I tried it in high first, and it was sort of, the revs were really going down once it hit a thick part of the field with rushes. So I bumped it down to low fourth, and it seems to be getting on much better. But the rev on the engine does seem to go down a small bit every time it goes into a thick layer of rushes, but not much I can do about that. Don't know if you can see the difference, but it's not cutting off a whole pile of the rushes, and it's still cutting very high, because even with the topper on the ground and running on its own slides, the slides is set to its highest point it can be set to. So we are cutting it high again, but yeah, and it is getting sort of hard to see in some patches where the rushes are the heaviest, because you're just chopping off the rushes, and then it's flying out at the back of the topper, and then lying loosely on the ground. And then when in the cab, that looks like an actual rush. or rushes, not chopped rushes, but rushes that are still unchopped. And I might be going over some areas more than once, which is not ideal. And it's not, doesn't seem to be topping some of them, because obviously they're getting squashed by the tractor wheels and by the skids on the topper itself. But overall, it's still cutting a fair amount of them. It's cutting a nice amount of them. It's cutting a comfortable amount. But yeah, it still struggles a small bit now. It struggles in some patches. But yeah, and another thing, because I topped it high and there's some loose rushes on the ground, some of them are getting caught here at the slide. So an odd time I might have to stop the tractor, lift up the topper, move forward a small bit, put down the topper, and then continue. So the process has been a bit slower because I have to do that. But again, there's no point dragging around a big pile of rushes at the bottom of the slide, and then it's collecting more and more, and the pile is getting bigger and bigger. So yeah, but we're getting on very, very good. The other thing is, it's very hot inside the tractor. It's very hot in the cab. But again, nothing much I can do about that either, because the fan is broken in it, and it's a big job to replace the fuse, which could be a winter's job, but then this tractor will be busy with feeding the cattle over the winter, so it mightn't even get done either. But anyways, we'll set up the camera again on the back of the tractor. Hopefully it records a decent footage. It's not too shaky or anything like that, because sometimes when I have the camera set on the back of the tractor and the PTO on, the vibration of the tractor, because it's a 1978 tractor, it's not like a 398 or a 628 or any bigger tractors like that would absorb most of the shocks and shakiness, rather than this one, which is, you know. But yeah, we'll set up the camera and see how we get on. And that is the topping done, as you can see, hopefully, with the camera and art is picking it up as clear as it can. But yeah, that's the topping done. So first of all, I went around it with the topper lifted up. I had the topper lifted up off the ground. The skids, the slides were in the air, and at the top link pushed out so that when it was lifted, it was straight rather than tipped up a small bit, which is what it would be if I lifted it up now with the top link pushed in. And then that left still a fairly high rushes left, which I then topped it with the topper on the ground, just like that. Also pointing out, I pointed this out as well in the earlier on in the video, that the skids are still lifted up to its maximum height, so it's not cutting down as low as it can be. It's still top and high, and you're still going to have a fair amount of rushes left, but we're hoping to get this sprayed this month, September. If not, we will try and do it next springtime, around February, March or April, and just get a grip on this field, because every single year we're topping it and topping it and topping it, and every single year it's just a forest of rushes. So we're kind of getting fed up, because the field isn't being used for anything. It's not being used for grazing with cattle or anything. If we did graze it, we'd have to fence a whole way along the field, make it sort of secure. And you can't really bale it either, because obviously there's a forest of rushes in it, and you won't be baling grass, you'd be baling rushes, and obviously cows don't like that. And again, when I was topping it up high, I was in low fourth with 15,000 revs. Is it 15? It's by 100, isn't it? 1,500. Yeah, 1,500 revs. I do get a bit confused with that. It says on the clock what you it's either multiplied by 100 or multiplied by 1,000. I'll have a look at it in a minute. But actually, we'll have a look at it now. I can't remember what I said early on in the video. I think I said 15,000. But let's just clarify this up straight away, so I'm not making a fool of myself. Right, and it's warm in here. So here it is, and it says multiply by 100, and I had it up here at 15. So that's 1500. That's 1500 revs. That's 1000. That's 2000, 2500, and 3000 down there. So yes, I was in low fourth with 1500 revs. That's when I was topping it high, and when the topper was on the ground, when I was topping it low to give it the nice finishing touch. I was also in low fourth with 1500 revs. So yeah, to clarify things up, I was in low fourth with 1500 revs or 1500 revs, not 15,000, which is a mad number. That's very high. So yeah, 1500. And you kind of have to say that the topper is looking very good, and I think, I may say so myself, it done a pretty good job in this field, topping it high and then topping it down low. It done a very good job, I have to say. Whether or not you agree, I don't know, but to me, I think it done a pretty good job for a fully rebuilt topper from scratch. We made the skeleton, the frame, we put the sheets on it, we made the skids. The only thing that's old on it is one of those lugs are the original lugs. I think it's this one, because we bored out the hole in the other one with the gas, so it's not a very round hole. That's the original. The PTO shaft itself is the original. We just got a new PTO shaft cover. These are the originals, and that's the original that were all on the old topper. The rest of it we made in shed in our own workshop at home, so I think we've done a pretty good job, and it's still going very strong and looking very good. One thing I have to mention is that when I was going over a few of the patches, the thicker patches of rushes with the topper down on the ground, there was a time when the engine on the tractor would sort of drop down a bit. So, you know, I could be tipping along at 1500 revs, and then I'd hit a fairly thick bit and it might go down to 1000. So the tractor was almost about to sort of conk out. The topper's blades weren't spinning well, and if they were not spinning well, they're not cutting well. So to give it a bit of a boost in some patches, I would have to use the foot throttle down here just to boost it back up to 1500 revs until we got out onto a more lighter area of rushes. I could then take my foot off the foot accelerator, the foot throttle, and it would easily then tip along at 1500 revs. But in the thick patches, I did have to give it a bit of assistance with the foot throttle, which obviously, it's an International 674. It has what, 56 to 60 horsepower, topping a thick forest layer of rushes. It's not the biggest of tractors, not the most powerful of tractors, but it did get the job done. So that goes to show you don't really need big, extravagant, fancy tractors to get a job done. If you're a small farmer like myself with about, adding up roughly 100 acres, about 30 cattle, you don't really need big fancy tractors. Obviously we could do with a slightly more bigger tractor than an International 674. We could probably do with a fairly small four-wheel drive tractor, like our old contractors Massey Ferguson 398 would actually probably suit us down to the ground well as keeping the International 674 for feeding the cattle in the winter and all that, and for other jobs like that. Obviously keeping the 135, because that is also a very handy tractor to have when you're doing dung, which is what we mainly use it for, and for putting grass into the box when we're cutting the lawns. So, you know, we kind of need every tractor we have, along with maybe another four-wheel drive tractor. But that is now going to be the end of today's video. So if you liked it, please do give me a like. If you're not subscribed, please do subscribe and turn the bell icon on to be notified of every future video I upload. Don't forget to check out my merch and the gate mate. The links to them will be down in the description. So that is it for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video very soon. Take care.